Okay, mainly what we are doing in my company, we are building test equipment. That means we build test equipment to help network manufacturers when they build their new equipment to make sure they are getting their performance and everything is okay. We are working with them when they develop their new technology. We also work with them as soon as they want to take a look at the performance they can get from the new technologies they develop. The first thing they are looking for is take a look at the functionality of their product and also the performance they can get when their customer will use this kind of product. We also work with service providers when they are deploying this kind of equipment on their networks to make sure first that the network, the equipment that they will choose will work fine, but also make sure when they deploy one equipment to have an idea about the capacity planning, if they need to deploy 1, 2, 3, 20 equipments at the backend to achieve their performance. We also work with them when they deploy new services, like for example, video on demand, voice over IP, and we take a look at the performance they can get at the backend. Also, the last part is when the enterprise are using the network of the service provider, we take a look at the performance they can get. That means when they are using this kind of, for example, they deploy e-banking, they want to know how many users can access to their web portals, the performance they can get, and the quality of service they can deliver. Therefore, we work also with enterprise more on web application testing. Mainly, we are doing testing since 50 years. That means that's our core business. We only do testings. That's we are present. We have 1,900 employees worldwide, and we are present in more than 50 countries because some of the customers want to test their networks over cross-Atlantic link and take a look at the performance they can get. We cover about like 1,500 customers worldwide in different areas, as I explained before: network manufacturers, service providers, and governments. We are mainly leading in lab testing. That's a lot of test equipment. Just to give you an idea about the test equipment that we are building, so we have more than 17 products. We can simulate from the layer 1 until the layer 7. That means we are always looking to have the ability to test any kind of protocol or any kind of technology. That's leading technology or technology that will be available later on. We can simulate like layer 1 physical links, also a satellite, GPS technology, and validate the different entities at any point. For example, if we look at customers' issue, it's always the same things. When we visit customers, they want to understand where the issue is coming from. That's the first thing, say, okay, I have a bad response time. Is it a network issue or is it an application issue? The first question is to identify where the issue is coming from. The way that we are working in this way. So that means we are identifying if it's a network performance issue that we'll do network performance validation, we'll do application performance validation, and at the end, we'll do service performance validations. How it's working? That's quite easy. We take the part that are causing the issue and we take a look. That means we remove, for example, the users, we'll remove the servers at the end, and we'll validate the network element by element, take a look at their performance. To identify what are the maximum performance of the router from layer 2 until layer 4, we take a look at the performance of the firewall at the layer 4 level, and take a look at the load balancer when it's going to the layer 4 and going to the application layer. And we take a look at the performance individually. You take a look at the entire infrastructure and get the maximum performance you can get in terms of new users, maximum concurrent users. Then we are validating the application. Therefore, here we'll put a box that will simulate the clients and the networks, and we'll take a look at the performance. So that means what are the performance of the web application, for example, in this case, how much user we can accept. And at the end, what we will do, we'll put our box in a front and we take a look at the capacity of the infrastructure. And in this case, the customer knows before they deploy what will be the performance on infrastructure. If you look, for example, at the firewall validations, I had recently one customer was looking for, it was a main web portal for governments where they were looking for during 1 week to achieve 5 million of users. That means we are doing a capacity test about 1 million of concurrent users and take a look at the infrastructure. Here they have 95 servers at the back end for the front end, and they were looking for, take a look at which vendors they need to choose to deploy the infrastructure. They put different vendors on the tables, and they were looking for which one was giving the best performance for their needs. Therefore, we put our equipment on one side to simulate the clients, our equipment on the other side to simulate the servers, and take a look at the maximum performance we can get. Here, the first test we are looking for, the customer says, okay, I want to know how many concurrent users and how many new users my services will be able to accept. Therefore, we go back because we are validating a network element. Therefore, we convert the network metrics. We convert it to a network metrics. Maximum new user per second means maximum new TCP connections per second you can accept. In this case, we are looking for about the maximum performance they were able to get. Here we can see that when we reach like 60,000 new TCP connections per second, you have two factors. That means the first breaking point you will find is you are starting to maintain concurrent TCP connections. And at the back end, you can see that the response time will increase a lot. Therefore, that's the second issue that you will be able to get. That means you can identify when you look for the maximum new user per second, you have two breaking points. You are creating validation criteria at the back end. That means the validation criteria you will create is first you make sure that all users who are trying to receive was sending a request, they are getting the response for their request. We take a look also about the response time to make sure it's an acceptable response time. We don't need to forget that we are validating a network equipment. Therefore, this network equipment, after you have all the entire infrastructure, like web applications, will inject some latency. Then we are validating about the maximum concurrent users. The goal of this test was really to open a connection, send a request, get back the response, and close the TCP connection, and faster as we can. That means if we maintain TCP connection open, that means the server or the network element is doing what we expect. Second test scenario is to look for the maximum concurrent users that the system was able to accept. Here we can see that when we are reaching 1 million of concurrent users, automatically the new users that we can see on the graph on the top left are not able to access to the services because the hashing table of the firewall is full. Therefore, what we can see that is the users, their response time is increasing to 70 seconds to get access to the web portals. Therefore, the customer should not deploy one of these equipments, but two of these equipments, at least to be able to achieve this performance. That was a simple test scenario. That means in terms of validation criteria, what I will put two validation criteria. Make sure that the user, when they open a connection, they can get the response. The second part is when they are sending, they have sent their request and they get the response, that is an unacceptable response time. If you take a look, if I want to automate this test, because basically, manually I'm doing the test one after the other ones. First thing I want to have the ability to control when I need to validate multiple vendors and extract their performance is control the test equipments and configure the test equipments for different test scenarios. After, I'm really interested to control the device under test and configure it. Look for the maximum performance according to some breaking points, and after run all these tests in a test suite. That means if we go back to different vendors or service provider enterprise, always the same requirements. If it's from an application point of view or network point of view, they will look for the maximum performance they can get. When you deploy your new services, you want to know how far you can go before you deploy. Therefore, here we take a look at sample of the test, like maximum UTCP connections per second, maximum HTTP transactions per second, maximum SIP sessions is for voice over IP, maximum concurrent user can do voice over IP, maximum streaming users, maximum bandwidth that your networks can accept. And then you are trying to do all the different combinations. From a network point of view, they will take a look at the impact of different configuration. If I'm using a small subnet, a large subnet, if I'm using like VLAN taggings, if I'm encrypting my traffic, not encrypting my traffic, and if I'm mixing all these protocols together, what will be the impact? From a QA point of view, when we go back to our QA internally, that we told them, okay, all our customers want to have performance metrics, because if they need to get the performance on their on-device they want to validate, we need also to provide performance metrics about the performance, how far our test equipment is able to go. So that we take a look, that's just for one product line, it was 2,000 tests in terms of protocol coverage, all the different combinations, and after 25 performance tests. It's a lot of tests. Our QA that they told us, okay, we'll not be able to build and run all these tests. We need to have like 50 test engineers to be able to test the test tools. Therefore, we had to come with the solutions to be able to create the test tools to automate the different test scenarios internally. And after, they have the different performance that they need to build per test equipments. They were really looking for to have the ability, when they're running a test, if the protocol has some bugs inside, like to stop the test and to move on the next test automatically. Why run a test for 8 hours if you're running a performance test, after 10 minutes the test is failing? So that to have the ability in live to take condition. That means our QA requirements was quite simple. That they were looking for an easy way to automate their test scenario, to have the ability to control the load profiles, to generate the loads, upload new configurations on our equipments or on the test equipments, configure the device under test, and clear the statistic between tests or reboot the test. Have the ability to start a test, and have the ability in real time to make condition statements, to take a decisions before the end of the test, to stop the test or reduce the load or increase the loads. Also, at the end of the test, we were looking for to have a post-validation criteria that automatically analyze the statistic and reduce the load based on that. Generate a test report, quite simple, pass, fail at the end, and take a look also if you need to troubleshoot and go to the engineering, telling them where the issue is coming from, therefore they can look at the code. And to have the ability to control the iteration, to rerun the test n times, or to go to the next test. What we have created a software internally, it's called Worksuite Managers, giving us the ability to automate all our test scenarios. The way it's working is quite simple. That means we have the ability, we have a control iterations, we have a control script that will talk to our test equipment or to a device under test. We can start a test. In live, we have the ability, we have validation criteria that will update permanently. and we'll parse all the statistics permanently to make a decisions. All these variables are put in the global variable tables. At the end of the test, we are collecting the statistic, and we do post-validation criteria. We can extract information from our test equipment or for any kind of device that we are validating or any kind of servers. At the end, we are building a report, and after you go back to the first parts, control iterations, to know if you need to run again your test or continue on. I will detail all the different parts. So the framework is quite simple. So you have test suite, and you have Worksuite. That means the test suite is all your different test scenario, and after you have the Worksuite where you can specify which test you want to run and how you will run this kind of test. For example, if I'm looking at test iteration, that's the way it will work. That means I have a control iterations with a decision maker that is analyzing the previous result of the test, if you need to run again the test scenario or abort the test scenario. We make it quite graphical because our QA engineers, they were not looking for to build script all the time. Therefore, we make some script at the backend is doing that. That's what they do, that you define if you run your test for hours until you are getting some issues. The number of time you run to run the test, take a look if you have exactly the same results. We have a control script. The next part is the control script is giving you the ability to control the device. That means you have the ability to configure tests. You can call any kind of scriptings, and you will have the ability to reconfigure your test between the tests, like reboot your tests, reboot the test equipment before you are testing it, and reboot also the device or the infrastructure. The way it's working, it's a TCL script that is called at the backend, and we'll define the load. Here it's goal syncing on our side, where we readjust the load on the fly between tests, where we define the minimum load, the maximum loads, and the accuracy of the measurements that we would like to get. And we are running the test, and this control script we will call all the times at the beginning of the test scenario. The most interesting part is this part. We have created a real validation criteria. That means in live we can make decisions. That once the test is running, we are parsing the statistic. On our side, for example, for one of the products, we parse 2,000 statistics in live, from the layer 2 until the layer 7. Then we are able also to collect statistics from the device that we are testing or the servers that we are testing. Therefore, we have different possibilities. In live, when the test is failing, we have the possibility to reduce the loads, increase the loads, stop the test, and make, okay, I don't need to run anymore this test because it was HTTP and we are not supporting properly HTTP or voice over IP implementations. Therefore, we can continue, stop the test, or abort the test. The way it will happen is in this way, that you are defining a group of validation criteria, and in this validation criteria, that's an example. Here I'm defining an HTTP response times, the number of requests, make sure I'm not getting any errors, and I'm monitoring my web server CPUs, memory, and number of threads that I'm getting at the backend. The way that the validation criteria is quite simple, that you are receiving a value. Here I'm looking for to not get any errors. If I'm getting any errors, I'm starting to abort the test, and I'm displaying a message in live about what's going on. In real time, that's the statistics that I'm able to get. That here I can get an application layer view and also a network view. That means here I can take a look at the number of requests that I'm sending per second. The number of requests are successful. If I'm getting some errors, I can take a look at the user response time, take a look at the bandwidth consuming, and I also can take a look at the maximum connections that are opened or not. That means when this error will happen, what we can see is that here automatically I was reaching here bandwidth limitations about 1 gigs, and I can see that I'm getting a bad user response time first. Then after I will get some concurrent TCP connections. When my test is finished, I'm going to a post-validation criteria. That where this post-validation criteria will collect all the information from our test equipment, but also collect all the information from the device under test to consolidate all the information. That here you have the ability to extract the information from the test equipment, update the global variable that if the result was bad when you are passing the statistic from the servers, and to continue a test or abort a test. The post-validation criteria give you the ability to collect all these kind of information. In a way that is done graphically. That you select your validation criteria that will run a script at the end and collect all this information that will be available to build the test report. The way the report is done is in this way. That means you are executing a script, that these scripts will go to report transformations and will generate an HTML report. Most of our customers was really interesting to get an idea about what's going on at the back end. That means when they're running a test, you get a quick summary about the test reports, and after go in details if they need it. So the way we report, that's the basic summary that we are getting. First, we know when we are running a Worksuite, how many tests we are running, what was the test was passing, what was the test was failings, and after all the different test failings, we can click on it to have some more details about the test scenario based on the validation criteria that we have defined previously. That means here we can see that, for example, I had 8 validation criteria, and I can see that I'm getting some web server issues. Therefore, I can take a look at the maximum performance I was able to get before I was getting this issue. For example, if I need to troubleshoot this full test scenario, I'm getting a final report that it could be an HTML report or PDF reports, or we can give the result in a CSV format. When we get this result, we have the ability to analyze all these kind of informations. For example, this test is failing at 46%, and I want to know why it's failing. Therefore, I will start to troubleshoot. I can see that I'm getting some bad response time, 8 seconds, 9 seconds of response time. I want to know where this issue is coming from. Is it an application or a network issue? Therefore, I can see that if I'm looking at my statistic from an application point of view, I can take a look and I can see that I'm getting some transport error. That means that's an error at the TCP layer. That means my user was sending requests, they were starting to get some information, but they have not get the end of the information they were looking for. I'm looking at my TCP statistic, and here I can see that I'm getting a lot of TCP connections closed with a reset. Okay, let's take a look. Some of the browsers close the TCP connection with a reset. I want to understand if it's the case. Here I can take a look, I can see that I'm getting a lot of timeout, I'm getting some congestion loss by scene, and I'm getting also plenty of packets out of sequence. That means all these packets are not complete. I'm getting half of the information of this packet. Therefore, I'm going down to the layer 2 to take a look if I have a network issue. Here I can see that I'm getting plenty of packets underrun and overrun. That means I have reached my bandwidth limitations. But reaching these bandwidth limitations was having an impact at the application layer for the user. He was getting a bad response time because he needs to retransmit plenty of times his request to get this information. Therefore, if I want to take a look, here I'm putting in the same graph all the information that my bandwidth consuming. I'm putting at the number of requests that I'm getting, the response time for the users, and also the number of concurrent TCP connections that is getting. Here, when I'm receiving a bandwidth limitation, I can see that I have my number of concurrent TCP connection increasing. Why? Because the user will stay more longer. I have a bandwidth limitations. Then his response time will increase, and at the end, if I'm sending too much requests per second, I will see that I'm getting some unsuccessful requests. If we look at the case study, because these tools mainly we develop internally at the beginnings. And one day that a customer was going to our lab and take a look at it and say, okay, it could be interesting that we use also these tools because we have exactly the same needs. That when we are running, we have like 1,000 tests to run, and we need to run all these tests manually. Therefore, they will be looking for to automate the test equipments, the way to run their tests, but also to automate the way they were configuring their tests and get global reports. Therefore, this one was a web application testing that the customer was looking for to test. He put an avalanche on the front and take a look at the performance he was able to get. That means he's replacing his users by the avalanche, and take a look at the performance he will be able to get. First thing was really interesting is how we'll manage all this part. That means we are checking with the Worksuite manager the status of the web server, the status of the application server, and the database. That we put some probe and we take a look at the statistic. And we control the test equipment test to test. And at the end, we generate the reports. The first part, before running any test, is to know what kind of tests we'll run. That means identify like the different parts. That means define the control script, the goal thinkings, the post-validation criteria, the reports, and take a look at what we can get from that. In terms of test methodology, first we'll validate the web server performance using static content and after using dynamic content to take a look how far we can go. So that means here we'll validate different objects using HTTP 1.0, for example, 1 kilobyte, 5 kilobyte, 10 kilobyte, 50 kilobyte to take a look at the performance degradation of my web servers to deliver informations. Then I will take a look at the maximum concurrent TCP connection I will get. I will use HTTP 1.1 with keep alive and take a look at the maximum performance I can get. Then I will move to the maximum HTTP transactions, where I'm sending multiple requests inside the same TCP connection. Take a look if this thing have a performance impact at the backend. I'm taking a look at my maximum bandwidth, because if I'm using classical HTTP and after I'm moving to HTTPS, I want to know how far I will be able to go when I will encrypt my traffic. And then I will move to my web application test scenario, where I will use like session IDs, cookies, content validations, take a look really if I'm getting the information I was looking for with different scenario, maximum new user per second, and maximum concurrent users that my web application will be able to accept. The way it will work in this way. That means I'm defining my test suite, and at the end I'm defining my Worksuite manager with all the different criteria, one test by one test, and take a look at the performance. Because I want to compare different web servers and web services that I want to do. The way that I will define my validation criteria is in this way: HTTP response time and successful requests, maximum TCP connection, maximum TCP response time, and the web server CPUs, memory, and thread. That means I have a view from an application point of view, external point of view, not on the web servers, and I'm running a performance test. And I have also a view about the status of my web servers, if it's healthy or not, or if it's completely crashing and it's not available anymore, to see how far I can go. Now, when I'm doing my web application infrastructure testing, that I have plenty of elements to monitor, like my web servers, my application servers, my database. I can monitor any kind of equipment or servers. And then at the end, I will collect all my information using a post-validation criteria, where I will parse the result of the test equipment, but also collect the information of the web servers to identify which part is a bottleneck. It's become really interesting. For example, if we take a look at a real customer scenario, this one I have done it like 2 weeks ago, where the customer said, okay, I need to validate this infrastructure, I have new services to deploy, and I want to know which infrastructure is the best. Therefore, the first infrastructure they were planning to deploy was this one. And they take a look, we configure all the different validation criteria, and run a test to take a look at the performance. They say we want to know if this one is better than this one, a second infrastructure to take a look at the performance they were able to get. And we want to compare also this infrastructure with another ones, with this one to take a look if which one we need to deploy to get the maximum performance. That means this was the real application that they developed, and they were looking for the maximum they can get. They were running the Worksuite manager by defining the different tests: 1,000 transactions per second, 2,000 transactions per second, 3,000 transactions for every infrastructure, and take a look infrastructure by infrastructure. Infrastructure 1, infrastructure 2, infrastructure 3. They were running the test suite over the night and take a look at the performance they were able to get. The day after, they come back and they get an HTML report. It's telling them, okay, the first infrastructure passed the 1,000 transactions per second. The second was not passing the test, and again and again. That means they are getting a simple report telling them the maximum performance they can get. Therefore, they can go back and optimize their configuration and run again the test. They don't need to be in front of the test equipment. The test is running automatically and gives them a report. For example, if I need to validate security testing at another box I'm putting, and I'm taking a look at the performance. Here I have an IDS IPS in the middle. What I will use an avalanche that will generate the traffic, a reflector that will simulate the servers, because I won't want to attack my real servers, and I want to make sure that I'm blocking the attack from a network point of view. And I'm putting a box that we just recently have that is giving the ability to generate attacks. Therefore, we generate attacks and take a look at the maximum performance I can get when I'm on my networks when it's under attack. And the Worksuite manager will control the statistic from the test equipment, but control also the statistic from the IDS IPS if he's able to detect the attack properly. Here I'm defining my Worksuite, where I will define, like, first, in terms of the test methodology, I will define a test where I will only run my good traffics, putting the IDS IPS in different conditions. Then I will run only bad traffics with the IDS IPS in different conditions. And after, I will mix my good and bad traffic together to take a look under realistic conditions, what kind of performance I can get. If I'm taking a look at the first things, I need to benchmark. That makes sure that really my network is able to handle the loads when I'm not putting the device under test in the middle. Therefore, I'm running a test, a blank test, take a look at the maximum bandwidth that I'm able to get. Where here, we'll check the statistic on the switch and take a look at the maximum performance. Here, I can take a look that I'm getting 962 meg of bandwidth without any problems. That means my switch, that's the maximum performance I can get from an application point of view. And you can see that it's really linear, I'm not getting any issue. What I'm doing, now I'm running my second test where I will put my sensor in bypass mode. That means it's only doing packet forwardings. In this case, I'm running the test and take a look at the maximum performance that I can get. I can see that I'm running exactly the same kind of performance. That means my device that I'm putting in the middle have no impact when it's in transparent modes and doing packet forwardings. Now I will enable the functionality on a device under test, take a look at the performance I'm able to get. The Worksuite manager will configure the IDS IPS to put in an IDS mode, where here in this case is not allowed to block any kind of traffic, it's just monitoring the traffic and detecting the attack and report that the attack has been detected. That means I'm just looking for these kind of things and I'm generating good traffic. I'm not generating any bad traffic for the moment. Here you can see that only for good traffics, that's the performance that I'm able to get, 320 meg. Therefore, I can see that automatically if I'm enabling the device to detect attacks, and it's not really attack, it's only good traffics, I've already a performance degradation about 3 times. That's just take a look at the performance. I'm enabling the functionality, I'm not blocking any attacks. Now, the most interesting part is when I will send some attacks. Therefore, what I will do, I'm putting the threat that will send the attacks, the avalanche will generate the good traffic, and here the IDS need to allow the good traffic and block the bad traffic. That means it's really complicated. Here are the statistics in real time that I'm getting. So what I will do, I will generate a background traffic about 425 megs, a number of new transactions per second, and take a look at the performance that I can get at the backend. At the beginning, I'm getting 5 milliseconds of response time. That means everything is okay. In real time, I can see that if I'm getting some unsuccessful requests or not, I'm not getting any errors. And I can see that my response time is really correct, still 5 milliseconds of response time. Now I will start to generate some attacks and take a look at the impact for the users when the network is under attack. That means at this point, I'm starting to generate my attacks. The first thing that we can see that the IDS IPS in the middle is trying to do like some bufferizations to do pattern matching and identify if there is any attacks. Here I can see that already I'm losing some requests. I'm not getting any errors, it's just that I'm sending a request, I'm not getting the response immediately. That my response time go to 40 milliseconds, and in 10 seconds I can see that I'm losing like 300 requests per second. Now I'm just at 20 seconds of attacks. Here I can see that my response time is already about 1 minute. 1 second, and I'm getting 178 milliseconds of 178 meg of bandwidth. Now I'm generating like exactly the same amount of attacks during 20 seconds. Here I can see that my response time go to 9 seconds. That means my IDS IPS is not able to block properly the attacks, and that the performance impact that I'm getting. Here at these points, I should stop the test using the Worksuite to be able to run the next test and reduce the load, because this equipment is not able to block properly the attack. But I would like to take a look how far we can go and how fast the networks will be able to recover when it's under attack. In terms of test, I'm continuing my test, and I can see that after 45 seconds of attack, my response time is about 20 seconds, and I'm 381 meg of bandwidth. And my attack is finished, but I can see that my network is not able to recover. When we are doing these testings, we are monitoring with the Worksuite permanently until when the response time will go back to 5 milliseconds, and it was taking 45 minutes. Just for 45 seconds of attacks, it was taking 45 minutes to recover and go back to 5 milliseconds. The time is need to free all its buffer and be able to recover the traffic. You can see that it's still getting, and the response time is going down, the bandwidth is going up, and after progressively it will go back to 0. That we are using all the times our Worksuite to be able to automate our test and be able to speed up the process for our customers. They have always plenty of tests and have a short period of time to run their testings, because their core business is not to run testings. Their core business is to deliver applications or services at the back end. They are not looking for to do testing. They do the testing to make sure what they deploy is working fine, and it will work fine, and they want to identify if they are getting some potential issue. Just to make a summary about the key benefit about what we have developed, that we give the ability to optimize the way to run tests and improve the way that you're running the tests. We can automate easily different test scenarios graphically. We give the ability to identify like faster the breaking points. That means if the test is not working, we stop the test and move on the next test. We have the ability to make live decisions. That means we don't need to wait an end of the test to be able to identify where is the bottlenecks. We can collect all the statistics in real time, have a pass-fail criteria, giving a summary about the reportings, and also we can go in deep if we need to go to analyze deeper where the issue is coming from. I think I will. I'm finished. That if you have any questions.
Hi. As I listened, it strikes me that this seems almost like an expert system for your. The people who are using this are highly trained network engineers, I'm imagining. Just looking at the number of tabs of statistics.
It depends. When you try to validate a building infrastructure, take a look at service provider. When I'm deploying a triple play services, I need to handle 600,000 users. Therefore, the network that I will choose, first I need to choose the right network elements, I need to choose the right servers, and have the right developer developing the right application at the back end. That's quite difficult for them. So, okay, now we need to test and this year and make sure it's working fine. So that means we arrive with an approach where we define all the test methodology, and our customer just access to the technology we develop, and they just select easily to be able to run their tests and spend more time on troubleshooting where the issue is coming from on their network than trying to configure the test equipment. That's really the goal.
Is it easy to, two questions, quick ones I think. Does this tool allow you to provision the desired network layout that you want to test, or is that a separate?
No, you can decide that you can upload the configuration of test equipments and test the different variants, but also on the device that you want to test as well. That you can test all the different possibilities. That the first one with a small subnet, large subnet, enable the encryption, disable the encryption, run the algorithm of encryptions, and take a look at the performance you can get easily. From a network topology, if you have one equipment or 10 equipments.
Okay. And last question is it easy, the ability to add, the ability to automatically configure new devices? Is it just a matter of importing?
Yeah, the device script is easy. That even if like you have the ability to run any kind of script that is based on TCL at the backend, therefore you run your TCL script is populating the configuration on your device. You can integrate any kind of, and even if you can run another script and call it. Any other questions?
Okay.
Oh.
Take one from that side first.
We on? Yeah. Bonjour.
Bonjour.
So I have two questions. First off, is this a product which is currently being used by many people outside of your company?
Yeah, that's a lot of, at the beginning, we were developing these tools internally, and one day we have one of our customers was looking at our performance test lab, and he went to the lab and take a look at it and say, okay, this tool, I need it as well, because you're using it internally to validate your own performance, but I'm doing exactly internally. I'm running plenty of scripts, and my QA engineers are upset because they have thousands of tests to run, and I'm just giving them a short period of time. Therefore, more and more, we can see that our customers are using these tools to run their own performance testings.
And how long has it been licensed externally? Have you been?
These tools that we have it available for the market since 1 year.
Okay.
And before we are using these tools since 5 years internally.
I see. And last question: so far, are all the users, all the external clients who have licensed the tool, are they in Europe, or are some of them outside of Europe as well?
Worldwide customers are using these tools, not only in Europe. That's because they are changing their configuration. For example, you take a service provider, or let's take a network manufacturer using these tools, for example, in Israel, that they will send their configurations with their Worksuite to the engineering that is working in the US or in Asia to be able to replicate and make sure they can run, all of them will run exactly the same test. Because the main issue of performance testing is make sure every small functionality you will enable or disable will have a performance impact at the back end. Therefore, they exchange these configurations, and even if with their customers to prove their performance.
Merci.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you, right here,
Yeah.
do you have a way to parse the response coming from those devices?
Yeah, that's this one I was just taking an example of a web servers, but I'm using a lot with for service provider. We parse the statistic from the modems, at the BRAS. We take a look also at the DSLAM statistic, take a look if they come with the modem lines, and after they can send some traffic. So take a look at the quality of service. Basically, you can do SNMP monitoring, run the TCL script, VBS, Python, Perl script automatically and collect all this kind of statistic. Just a basic functions with else and else, and where you grab your value, and after based on that you make a condition statements if you want to continue or stop the test. And we can do it in real time, or we can do it post processing.
How much experience do you have with systems which are not websites or something like this?
That's here I was taking an example of web portals, but we do a lot of network validations. That's all the different elements we cover. I would say 90% of the test network manufacturer in terms of when they build new technology for networks. That's a lot. And after we have, in terms of service provider, like 70% of the worldwide service provider are using our technology to validate their networks for big services.
Okay, but as a backend simulator, what do you simulate for them?
That's a different approach. For example, you can simulate the physical link. I want to simulate an offices like a network between, I will say, one office is in China, the other one is in the US. I want to simulate the one latency. Therefore, I will have an impairment emulator that will simulate the LAN, and they will simulate like the 500 milliseconds of latency. Then on top of it, I will run my traffic and take a look at the performance I will get on this application deployed remotely. We can simulate any kind of layer, layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, layer 4, and layer 7, and even if 7+ if we need it.
One more over here.
In terms of interoperability, you showed an end-to-end solution that involves your vendor product in all positions. How interoperable is this with some of your competitor solutions? For example, if someone's using Agilent or Ixia in one of those roles?
Okay, in this way, what we will work, that means we have, even if the ability, some of our customers, they need to integrate also competitors. And what they will do, that they will integrate, they will define a control script, where in the control script they integrate and they manage by TCL this kind of test equipment. We make it like really open in terms of automations, because you can use any kind of device, and this device you need to access to it, and it's not necessarily our test equipment. It could be a device like a DSLAM, a firewall that they want to reconfigure, and in this case, we make it open, and they can integrate that in the Worksuite manager easily.
Now, does this extend to some of the, for example, Spirent has TTCN2 test suites, which are specific to Spirent equipment.
Yeah.
So are those being extended as well, so you can reuse those components with other
Exactly,
equipment?
that's what I've been working, because I'm mainly focused on the application layer performance. That's all the test suites that we exchange with customers, because that's not our test methodology. If I'm running a test for firewall vendors and I'm going now to a load balancer vendors, I need to compare and run exactly the same test suite to identify where the issue is coming from. Is it a firewall or is it a load balancer? Or is it a web application? Therefore, we use this test methodology for all the persons, and it's not a Spirent test methodology. That's why when we build the RFC, because we build a lot of RFC, all these RFCs that we build are not only Spirent people. You have plenty of other persons, members in the RFC. You have any other questions?
Yes, one more.
Do you support only CDMA or do you support GSM too?
We support all the different parts that in the CDMA. That's not my product line. I would say that I'm taking care in Spirent, but we support this kind of technology: CDMA, GSM, GSM2, all this kind of technology.
Thank you.
If you want to get more information, it's because it's really based on sector on our side, that we have different like network manufacturer, service provider, enterprise, wireless, satellite. Just go to our website and you can take a look at the person. We are present in more than 50 countries worldwide. That means if you need any kind of way to test or any kind of test methodology, you are really open to share the test methodology.
So any other questions? All right. Well, Gregory, thank you very much. Greg was actually, Gregory was actually a last-minute replacement for another speaker, so I really appreciate you coming out at the last minute to help us out here.